In a distant corner of the universe, far beyond the boundaries of human exploration, a solitary spacecraft drifted through the endless expanse of stars. Its sleek, cylindrical hull bore the scars of countless cosmic battles, a testament to the resilience and determination of its lone occupant. Inside the vessel, a being unlike any the galaxy had ever seen sat hunched over a glowing console, his slender fingers dancing across the controls with a fluid grace that belied his age. His name was Zyrax, and he was the last of his kind. The Qel'nari, a race of ancient galactic mediators, had once been renowned throughout the cosmos for their wisdom, compassion, and unparalleled ability to forge peace between even the most bitter of enemies. For eons, they had served as the guardians of harmony, the architects of alliances that had allowed the myriad civilizations of the galaxy to coexist in a delicate balance of power. But those days were long gone. A cataclysmic war, waged by a ruthless empire known as the Zoraxians, had laid waste to the Qel'nari homeworld, reducing it to a barren, lifeless husk. Zyrax, who had been off-world at the time, had returned to find his people slaughtered, their great cities reduced to rubble and ash. In the centuries that followed, he had wandered the stars alone, a haunted figure driven by a single, all-consuming purpose to find a way to restore peace to a galaxy torn apart by conflict and strife. Now, after countless cycles of searching, Zyrax had finally discovered a glimmer of hope. A cryptic message intercepted from an alien transmission spoke of a distant planet, a world of great power and potential, whose inhabitants held the key to unlocking a new era of galactic harmony. The message was fragmented and incomplete, but it contained a set of coordinates that pointed to a remote corner of the galaxy, far beyond the reach of the Zoraxian Empire. Zyrax knew that he had to act quickly. The Zoraxians were relentless in their pursuit of domination, and if they caught wind of this mysterious planet and its promise of power, they would stop at nothing to claim it for themselves. With a sense of urgency that bordered on desperation, Zyrax set his course for the coordinates and engaged his ships faster than light drive. As the stars streaked past his view screen in a dizzying blur of light and color, Zyrax allowed himself a moment of reflection. He thought back to his early days as a mediator, when the galaxy had seemed full of endless possibilities. He remembered the joy he had felt in bringing warring factions together, in seeing the light of understanding dawn in the eyes of those who had once been sworn enemies. But he also remembered the pain and sorrow that had followed, the bitter realization that his efforts had been in vain, that the cycle of violence and hatred would always find a way to reassert itself. Now, as he hurtled through the void of space towards an uncertain future, Zyrax knew that he was facing his greatest challenge yet. The stakes had never been higher, the consequences of failure never more dire. But he also knew that he could not turn back, that he had to see this through to the end, no matter the cost. As his ship dropped out of faster than light speed and entered the system indicated by the coordinates, Zyrax felt a sense of awe wash over him. The planet that lay before him was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was a world of breathtaking beauty, with vast oceans of shimmering blue and continents of lush verdant green. But there was something else too, a palpable sense of energy that seemed to emanate from the very core of the planet, a power that Zyrax could feel thrumming through his veins. As he guided his ship into orbit and began his descent to the surface, Zyrax couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the cusp of something momentous, that the fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance. He steeled himself for whatever lay ahead, drawing on the centuries of experience and wisdom that had sustained him through countless trials and tribulations. When his ship touched down on the surface of the planet, Zyrax was greeted by a sight that took his breath away. A vast city stretched out before him, its towering spires and gleaming domes reaching towards the sky like the fingers of a giant hand. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen, a stunning fusion of organic curves and geometric precision that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. But it was the inhabitants of the city that truly captured Zyrax's attention. They were humanoid in appearance, but with a grace and elegance that set them apart from any species he had encountered before. Their skin was a pale, iridescent blue, and their eyes glowed with an inner light that spoke of great wisdom and power. As Zyrax stepped out of his ship and onto the surface of the planet, he was immediately surrounded by a delegation of these beings, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Greetings," Zyrax said, bowing his head in a gesture of respect. "I am Zyrax of the Qel'nari, and I come in peace." The leader of the delegation, a tall, regal-looking being with eyes that seemed to pierce Zyrax's very soul, stepped forward and returned the greeting. "Welcome, Zyrax of the Qel'nari," she said, her voice a melodic whisper that sent shivers down Zyrax's spine. "I am Lyra, High Counselor of the Elysian Collective. We have been expecting you." Zyrax felt a surge of excitement at Lyra's words. So the message had been true, after all. The Elysians were indeed the key to unlocking a new era of peace and harmony in the galaxy. But even as he basked in the glow of this revelation, Zyrax couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than met the eye, that there were secrets and dangers lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic world. Over the next few days, Zyrax was given a tour of the Elysian city, a dazzling metropolis that seemed to pulse with a life and energy all its own. He marveled at the advanced technology that powered every aspect of Elysian society, from the sprawling network of levitating transport pods that crisscrossed the city's skyline to the vast, underground hydroponic farms that provided sustenance for the entire population. But even as he was dazzled by the wonders of Elysian civilization, Zyrax couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. There was a strange undercurrent of tension that seemed to permeate every interaction he had with the Elysians, a sense that they were holding something back, that they were not being entirely forthcoming about their true nature and intentions. It wasn't until Zyrax was invited to a private meeting with Lyra and the rest of the Elysian High Council that he began to understand the true scope of the situation he had stumbled into. The council chamber was a vast, circular room with walls that seemed to be made of living, pulsing energy. In the center of the room, hovering above a glowing pool of shimmering liquid, was a massive holographic projection of the galaxy, its countless stars and planets rendered in breathtaking detail. As Zyrax took his seat at the council table, Lyra leaned forward and fixed him with a penetrating gaze. "Zyrax," she said, her voice low and urgent, "there is something you must know. The message that brought you here, the promise of a new era of galactic peace and harmony. It was a lie." Zyrax felt a cold chill run down his spine at Lyra's words. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Why would you bring me here under false pretenses?" Lyra sighed, her shoulders slumping under the weight of the burden she carried. "Because we had no choice," she said. "The galaxy is on the brink of a catastrophe that threatens to engulf us all, and we need your help to stop it." With a wave of her hand, Lyra brought up a new image on the holographic display, a planet that Zyrax immediately recognized as the Zoraxian homeworld. But there was something different about it, something that made Zyrax's blood run cold. The planet was pulsing with a sickly, malevolent energy, its surface writhing and churning like a living thing. "The Zoraxians have unleashed a weapon of unimaginable power," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A device that harnesses the very fabric of reality itself, twisting and warping it to their will. They call it the Singularity Engine. And with it, they plan to remake the galaxy in their own image, to bend every living thing to their will." Zyrax felt a wave of horror wash over him at the implications of Lyra's words. He had seen firsthand the cruelty and ruthlessness of the Zoraxians, had witnessed the devastation they had wrought on countless worlds. The thought of them wielding a weapon of such power was almost too terrible to contemplate. "But what can I do?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and despair. "I am just one being, a relic of a lost age. How can I hope to stand against the might of the Zoraxian Empire?" Lyra leaned forward, her eyes burning with a fierce intensity. "You underestimate yourself, Zyrax," she said. "You are a Qel'nari, a member of a race that once brought peace and harmony to the galaxy. You have the power within you to do so again, to forge alliances and build bridges where others see only conflict and division." She gestured to the other members of the council, who nodded in agreement. "We have brought you here because we believe that you are the key to stopping the Zoraxians and their Singularity Engine," she said. "But we cannot do it alone. We need the help of the other races of the galaxy, the ones who have been beaten down and oppressed by the Zoraxians for so long. We need you to be our emissary to go out into the galaxy and rally them to our cause." Zyrax felt a surge of determination well up within him at Lyra's words. He knew that the task before him was a daunting one, that the odds were stacked against him in every conceivable way. But he also knew that he could not turn his back on this chance. that he had to do everything in his power to stop the Zoraxians and their terrible weapon. "I will do it," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "I will be your emissary, your voice in the galaxy. I will forge the alliances and build the bridges that we need to stand against the Zoraxians and their singularity engine." And so began a journey that would take Zyrax to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, a quest that would test the limits of his courage, his wisdom, and his resolve. He met with the leaders of countless alien races, from the proud and warlike Krellians to the enigmatic and mysterious Vori, using every ounce of his skill and persuasion to bring them together in a common cause. It was a task that seemed all but impossible at times, a struggle against centuries of distrust, prejudice, and hatred. But Zyrax refused to give up, refused to let the galaxy fall into the hands of the Zoraxians and their terrible weapon. He negotiated treaties and brokered alliances, using every tool at his disposal to forge a united front against the coming darkness. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Zyrax began to see the first glimmers of hope on the horizon. The races of the galaxy were coming together like never before, setting aside their differences and joining forces in the face of a common enemy. Ships and weapons were marshaled. Strategies were planned and refined, and a sense of purpose and determination began to take hold among the allied forces. But even as the tide began to turn against the Zoraxians, Zyrax knew that the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The singularity engine, the terrible weapon that threatened to unmake the very fabric of reality itself, still loomed over the galaxy like a shadow, a constant reminder of the stakes of the conflict. In a desperate attempt to buy more time, Zyrax and his allies launched a daring raid on the Zoraxian homeworld, a surgical strike designed to cripple the singularity engine and give the allied forces a fighting chance. But the mission went horribly wrong, and Zyrax found himself face to face with the Zoraxian Emperor himself, a being of such malevolence and cruelty that it defied description. In that moment, Zyrax knew that he was facing his greatest test, a challenge that would require every ounce of his courage and determination. With a roar of defiance, he threw himself at the Emperor, his energy blade flashing in the darkness as he fought with a fury and passion that he had never known before. The battle was long and brutal, a clash of wills and ideals that shook the very foundations of the Zoraxian palace. But in the end, it was Zyrax who emerged victorious, his blade finding its mark and ending the Emperor's reign of terror once and for all. With the Emperor dead and the singularity engine destroyed, the Zoraxian Empire began to crumble, its armies and fleets scattering to the winds in the face of the allied forces. Zyrax and his allies pressed their advantage, liberating world after world from Zoraxian rule, and bringing a new era of peace and freedom to the galaxy. But even as the galaxy celebrated its victory, Zyrax knew that his work was far from over. There were still pockets of resistance to be dealt with, still wounds to be healed and bridges to be built. And so he set out once again, a lone figure against the backdrop of the stars, determined to see his mission through to the end. Years turned into decades, and decades into centuries, as Zyrax traveled the length and breadth of the galaxy, spreading his message of unity and cooperation wherever he went. He became a legend, a symbol of hope and inspiration to countless beings across the cosmos, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always a chance for a brighter tomorrow. And when at last his journey came to an end, when he finally returned to the Elysian homeworld to rest and reflect on all that he had accomplished, Zyrax knew that he had lived a life well lived, a life dedicated to the noble cause of peace and harmony. As he looked out over the shimmering spires of the Elysian city, his thoughts turned to the countless beings he had met along the way, the allies and friends he had made in his quest to save the galaxy. He knew that they would carry on his work, that they would continue to fight for the ideals he had championed for so long. And with that knowledge, Zyrax closed his eyes and drifted off into a peaceful slumber, content in the knowledge that he had made a difference, that he had left the galaxy a better place than he had found it. For in the end, that was all any being could hope for, to leave a legacy of peace and hope that would endure long after they were gone. And so the story of Zyrax, the last of the Qel'nari, passed into legend, a tale of courage and sacrifice that would inspire generations to come. And though the galaxy would face many more challenges and trials in the centuries that followed, it would always remember the example set by this brave and noble being, a shining beacon of hope in a universe that sometimes seemed all too dark. As the centuries passed and the galaxy moved on from the Great War against the Zoraxians, Zyrax's legacy lived on in the hearts and minds of those he had touched. The alliances he had forged, the bridges he had built, endured, and grew stronger with each passing year, a testament to the power of unity and cooperation in the face of even the greatest of challenges. On the Elysian homeworld, a great monument was erected in Zyrax's honor, a towering spire of shimmering crystal that seemed to reach up to the very stars themselves. At its base, inscribed in the languages of 1,000 worlds, were the words that had come to define Zyrax's life and mission: in unity, there is strength. In cooperation, there is hope. Pilgrims from across the galaxy would come to pay their respects at the monument, to offer their thanks and their prayers to the being who had saved them all from the brink of destruction. Some would leave offerings of flowers and incense, while others would simply stand in silent contemplation, marveling at the sheer scale of what Zyrax had accomplished. But even as the galaxy celebrated Zyrax's legacy, there were those who sought to undermine it. In the shadows, remnants of the Zoraxian Empire still lurked, nursing their wounds and plotting their revenge. They saw Zyrax's monument as a symbol of their defeat, a reminder of the humiliation they had suffered at the hands of a single, seemingly insignificant being. And so they began to scheme and plot, to sow the seeds of discord and division among the fragile alliances that Zyrax had worked so hard to build. They whispered lies and half-truths into the ears of those who would listen, exploiting old grudges and ancient rivalries in the hopes of tearing the galaxy apart once more. At first, their efforts seemed to be in vain. The bonds that Zyrax had forged were strong, and the beings of the galaxy were united in their determination to preserve the peace that had been so hard won. But as the years turned into decades and the decades into centuries, the cracks began to show. Old tensions resurfaced, and new conflicts emerged, as the various races and factions of the galaxy began to jostle for power and influence. The once strong alliances that Zyrax had built began to fray at the edges, as suspicion and mistrust crept in like a cancer. It was amid this growing chaos that a new figure emerged, a being who claimed to be the heir to Zyrax's legacy. His name was Zorax, and he was a Zoraxian, a member of the very race that had once sought to enslave the galaxy. But Zorax was different from his forebears. He had been raised on stories of Zyrax's courage and sacrifice, and he had come to see the Qel'nari diplomat as a hero, a shining example of what a single being could accomplish through sheer force of will and determination. And so Zorax set out to follow in Zyrax's footsteps, to take up the mantle of the Galactic Mediator and bring the galaxy back from the brink of chaos. It was a daunting task, one that would require every ounce of his skill and courage. But Zorax was determined to see it through. He began by reaching out to the leaders of the various factions and races, seeking to understand their grievances and their fears. He listened patiently to their concerns, offering guidance and advice where he could, and slowly but surely he began to build bridges between them once more. It was a slow and painstaking process, one that required endless patience and perseverance. But Zorax was undaunted, driven by the same sense of purpose that had motivated Zyrax all those centuries ago. He knew that the galaxy needed him, that without a unifying force to bring its disparate elements together, it would surely tear itself apart. As the years passed, Zorax's efforts began to bear fruit. The old alliances were reforged, stronger and more resilient than ever before. The remnants of the Zoraxian Empire, seeing the futility of their efforts to sow discord, began to come out of the shadows and join the rest of the galaxy in the great work of rebuilding and renewal. And at the center of it all was Zorax, the humble Zoraxian who had taken up the mantle of the Galactic Mediator. He became a symbol of hope and unity, a reminder that even the most unlikely of beings could make a difference if they were willing to put the needs of others before their own. As the galaxy entered a new era of peace and prosperity, Zorax knew that his work was far from over. There would always be new challenges to face, new conflicts to resolve, new bridges to build. But he also knew that he was not alone, that he had the support and the love of countless beings across the stars. And so he pressed on, guided by the example of Zyrax and the unshakable belief that a brighter future was always worth fighting for. He became a legend in his own right, a shining beacon of hope and inspiration to all who knew him. In the end, when Zorax's own journey came to a close, he knew that he had lived a life well lived, a life dedicated to the noble cause of peace and unity. And as he took his final breaths, he could feel the presence of Zyrax beside him, a warm and comforting presence that seemed to whisper in his ear, "Well done. My friend Zyrax seemed to say, "You have carried on my work, and you have made the galaxy a better place. Rest now, and know that your legacy will endure, just as mine has." And with those words, Zorax passed into the great beyond, his spirit joining with that of Zyrax and all the other great mediators and peacemakers who had come before. And though the galaxy would face many more challenges and trials in the centuries to come, it would always remember the example set by these two brave and noble beings who had given everything they had to make the universe a better place. And so, the story of Zorax and Zyrax, the two great galactic mediators, passed into legend, a tale of hope and unity that would inspire generations to come. And though the galaxy would never be perfect, it would always strive to live up to the ideals they had championed, to build a future where all beings could live in peace and harmony, united by the bonds of love and understanding. As the galaxy moved forward into a new era of peace and prosperity, the legacy of Zyrax and Zorax continued to inspire and guide the countless beings who called the stars their home. The monuments and memorials erected in their honor became places of pilgrimage and reflection, where beings from all walks of life could come to pay their respects and draw strength from the examples set by these two great leaders. But even as the galaxy basked in the glow of this new golden age, there were those who looked to the future with a sense of unease. For all the progress that had been made, for all the bridges that had been built and the wounds that had been healed, there was a sense that something was still missing, that there was some deeper truth that had yet to be uncovered. It was this sense of unease that drove a young Elysian scientist named Lyrax to embark on a journey of discovery that would change the course of galactic history. Lyrax had always been fascinated by the mysteries of the universe, by the strange and wondrous phenomena that lay just beyond the reach of conventional science. And so, armed with a burning curiosity and an unshakable determination, Lyrax set out to explore the farthest reaches of the galaxy, to uncover the secrets that had lain hidden for untold millennia. She traveled to distant worlds and studied ancient ruins, piecing together the fragmentary clues that had been left behind by civilizations long since vanished. As she delved deeper and deeper into the mysteries of the past, Lyrax began to uncover a stunning truth that the galaxy was not simply a collection of disparate races and cultures, but a single, interconnected whole, bound together by a force that was as ancient as the universe itself. This force, which Lyrax came to call the Galactic Consciousness, was a vast and incomprehensible entity, a cosmic intelligence that permeated every corner of the galaxy. It was the source of all life and all knowledge, the wellspring from which all the wonders of the universe had sprung. But as Lyrax continued her research, she began to realize that the Galactic Consciousness was not simply a benign force, but a complex and multifaceted entity, with its own desires and motivations. She saw that it had guided the evolution of countless species across the eons, shaping them according to its own inscrutable purposes. And she saw, too, that the Galactic Consciousness was not infallible, that it could make mistakes and missteps just like any other being. She saw that it had allowed the rise of the Zoraxian Empire, had watched impassively as countless worlds had been consumed by the fires of war and destruction. Haunted by these revelations, Lyrax knew that she could not keep this knowledge to herself. She knew that the galaxy needed to know the truth about the Galactic Consciousness, needed to understand the role that it had played in shaping their destinies. And so, with a heavy heart, Lyrax returned to the Elysian homeworld and convened a great council of the galaxy's wisest and most influential leaders. She told them of her discoveries, of the vast and ancient intelligence that lay at the heart of the galaxy. At first, the council was skeptical, unwilling to believe that such a thing could be possible. But as Lyrax laid out the evidence she had gathered, as she spoke of the wonders and the horrors she had witnessed, they began to see the truth of her words. And so, with a sense of awe and trepidation, the council resolved to establish contact with the Galactic Consciousness, to learn from it, and to seek its guidance in the great work of building a better future for all the beings of the galaxy. It was a daunting task, one that would require all the courage and wisdom that the galaxy could muster. But guided by the examples of Zyrax and Zorax, and inspired by the revelations of Lyrax, the beings of the galaxy rose to the challenge. They built great ships and powerful instruments, designed to probe the depths of the Galactic Consciousness and to communicate with the vast intelligence that lay at its heart. They sent emissaries and ambassadors, beings of great learning and compassion, to serve as intermediaries between the galaxy and the consciousness. And slowly but surely they began to make progress. They learned of the consciousness's vast knowledge and its deep understanding of the workings of the universe. They learned of its desire for growth and evolution, and of its hope for a future in which all beings could live in harmony and unity. But they learned, too, of the consciousness's flaws and limitations, of its tendency to view the beings of the galaxy as mere tools to be used in the service of its own inscrutable goals. They saw that, for all its wisdom and power, the consciousness was not infallible, and that it needed the guidance and the wisdom of the galaxy's people to truly fulfill its potential. And so, in a great and solemn ceremony, the leaders of the galaxy came together to forge a new covenant with the Galactic Consciousness. They pledged to work together in the spirit of cooperation and mutual understanding, to use their knowledge and their skills to help guide the consciousness towards a brighter and more hopeful future. They vowed to be the consciousness's partners and its friends, to help it grow and evolve in ways that would benefit all the beings of the galaxy. And they promised to stand together in the face of any challenge or adversity, united by the bonds of friendship and common purpose. As the ceremony came to a close, and the leaders of the galaxy dispersed to their respective worlds, a sense of hope and excitement hung in the air. For the first time in countless millennia, the galaxy was truly united, bound together by a shared vision of a better tomorrow. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, though there would be trials and challenges to face, the beings of the galaxy knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the wisdom and guidance of the Galactic Consciousness to light the way. And so, as the stars wheeled overhead, and the great engines of the galaxy churned with renewed purpose, the beings of the galaxy looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to face whatever lay ahead. They knew that, together, there was nothing they could not achieve, no obstacle they could not overcome. And as they set out on this new and wondrous journey, they carried with them the memories of Zyrax and Zorax, the two great leaders who had shown them the way. They knew that, in the end, it was the courage and the compassion of individuals like these that would shape the course of the galaxy, that would lead them all to a brighter and more beautiful tomorrow. As the galaxy entered this new era of unity and cooperation, guided by the wisdom of the Galactic Consciousness, a sense of optimism and purpose suffused every corner of the cosmos. The great civilizations of the stars worked together as never before, pooling their knowledge and resources to unlock the secrets of the universe and to build a future of unparalleled prosperity and wonder. Under the guidance of the consciousness, great strides were made in the fields of science and technology. Powerful new energy sources were developed, ones that could sustain the galaxy for countless millennia to come. Miraculous medical breakthroughs were achieved, eradicating diseases that had plagued the beings of the galaxy since time immemorial. And through it all, the consciousness watched and guided, its vast intelligence shaping the course of galactic history with a subtle and delicate touch. It nurtured the growth of new species and civilizations, encouraging them to reach their full potential and to take their place among the stars. But even as the galaxy basked in the glow of this new golden age, there were those who looked upon the Galactic Consciousness with suspicion and fear. They saw in its vast power and inscrutable motives a threat to their own autonomy and free will, and they began to plot and scheme against it in secret. Led by a charismatic and ruthless figure known only as the Discordant, these dissidents worked to sow the seeds of doubt and mistrust among the people of the galaxy. They whispered of the consciousness's true nature, of its desire to control and dominate all life in the universe. At first, their efforts seemed to make little headway. The people of the galaxy were too enamored with the consciousness and its gifts to pay heed to the Discordant's dire warnings. But as time passed and the dissidents' influence grew, cracks began to appear in the facade of unity that the consciousness had so carefully constructed. Conflicts erupted on the fringes of galactic civilization, as the Discordant's followers clashed with those who remained loyal to the consciousness. Great fleets of starships clashed in the void, their weapons lighting up the darkness with the fires of war. Amid this growing chaos, the Galactic Consciousness itself seemed to falter and waver, its once clear guidance becoming muddled and uncertain. Some even whispered that the consciousness was not the benevolent entity it had claimed to be, but a malevolent force that sought only to enslave and destroy. It was in this moment of crisis that a new figure emerged onto the galactic stage, a young Elysian diplomat named Lyrax. Zyrax had been a student of Lyrax, the scientist who had first uncovered the truth of the Galactic Consciousness, and he had inherited her mentor's deep fascination with the mysteries of the cosmos. But where Lyrax had been a researcher and an explorer, Zyrax was a diplomat and a peacemaker. He saw in the growing conflict between the consciousness and the discordant an opportunity to heal the rifts that threatened to tear the galaxy apart, and to build a new and lasting peace. And so, with a small band of loyal companions, Zyrax set out on a mission of diplomacy and reconciliation, seeking to bridge the divide between the consciousness and its detractors. He met with the leaders of the dissidents and the loyalists alike, listening to their grievances and their hopes with an open and compassionate ear. Through his efforts, a fragile truce was achieved, and the fires of war began to gutter and fade. But even as the galaxy celebrated this newfound peace, Zyrax knew that the true challenge still lay ahead. For he had sensed a deeper truth about the nature of the galactic consciousness, a truth that threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality itself. In a final, desperate gambit, Zyrax journeyed to the very heart of the galaxy, to the place where the consciousness was said to reside. There, in a vast and ancient structure that pulsed with an otherworldly energy, he confronted the consciousness itself and learned the true nature of its being. He saw that the consciousness was not a single entity, but a vast and complex network of minds and intelligences bound together by a common purpose. He saw that it was not a god or a demon, but a reflection of the galaxy itself, a manifestation of the collective hopes and dreams of all the beings that called the stars their home. And he saw too that the consciousness was not infallible or omnipotent, but a fragile and imperfect thing, subject to the same doubts and fears as any other being. He saw that it needed the galaxy as much as the galaxy needed it, that they were two halves of a greater whole. With this newfound understanding, Zyrax returned to the galaxy and shared his revelation with all who would listen. He spoke of the need for balance and harmony, of the importance of recognizing the consciousness's flaws and limitations, even as they celebrated its gifts and wonders. And slowly but surely his words began to take root. The dissidents and the loyalists alike saw the wisdom in his vision, and they came together in a spirit of reconciliation and mutual understanding. The discordant, too, saw the error of their ways and joined in the great work of building a new and better galaxy. Under Zyrax's guidance, the beings of the galaxy forged a new covenant with the galactic consciousness, one based on trust, respect, and the recognition of their shared destiny. They vowed to work together as equals, to learn from each other and to grow together in wisdom and compassion. As the years turned to decades and the decades to centuries, the galaxy entered a new age of peace and prosperity, one that surpassed even the wonders of the previous era. Guided by the wisdom of the consciousness and the leadership of beings like Zyrax, the great civilizations of the stars achieved marvels that had once seemed impossible, unlocking the deepest secrets of the universe and building a future of unparalleled beauty and wonder. And though the challenges and trials of the past were not forgotten, they became a source of strength and inspiration, a reminder of the incredible resilience and the unbreakable spirit of the beings who called the galaxy their home. And so, as the story of this great and glorious age passed into legend, the people of the galaxy looked back on the lives of Zyrax and Zorax, of Lyrax and Xyrax, and all the other heroes and visionaries who had guided them on their journey to the stars. They remembered their courage and their wisdom, their compassion, and their unwavering dedication to the cause of peace and unity. And they knew that, as long as the memory of these great beings lived on in the hearts and minds of those who came after, the galaxy would never truly be lost. For theirs was a legacy of hope and inspiration, a shining beacon that would guide the way to a brighter tomorrow for all the ages to come. And so, with hearts full of gratitude and minds alight with the promise of the future, the beings of the galaxy looked to the stars once more, ready to embrace whatever wonders and challenges the cosmos had in store. They knew that the journey ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be obstacles and adversities to overcome. But they also knew that they would face these trials together, united by the bonds of friendship and common cause that had been forged in the fires of their shared history. They knew that, as long as they held true to the ideals and the values that had brought them this far, there was nothing they could not achieve, no dream that was beyond their reach. And as the great engines of the galaxy churned with renewed purpose, and the stars themselves seemed to dance with joy, the beings of this wondrous and infinite cosmos looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to write the next chapter in the grand and enduring story of their existence.